Hello BookTube and welcome to Weekly Reads. I'm going to try to make this as quick as I can because I have a movie I want to watch later on tonight and it comes on in about an hour and some change. So the first book I read this week, and the only one I can really talk to you about, is The Black Prince of Florence, The Spectacular Life and Treacherous World of Alessandro de' Medici by Catherine Fletcher. I had previously read last year her book, The Beauty and the Terror, about Renaissance Italy, and this is a biography of Alessandro de' Medici, who was the first Duke of Tuscany. He was born the great-grandson, the grandson or great-grandson of Lorenzo de' Medici the Magnificent. Is illegitimate. He and his cousin both were, and he was the son of a servant, certainly, possibly either a slave or the descendant of a former slave. And he gradually rose to prominence because the main branch of the Medici family had no one else. It was him, his equally illegitimate, though from a more noble background, cousin, and his legitimate half-sister, who would eventually become Catherine de' Medici, or who was Catherine de' Medici and would eventually become Queen of France. So he gradually rose in his cousin Clement VII's, Pope Clement VII's machinations, and eventually he got control of Florence once the Medici returned from their brief period of exile in the late 1520s and early 1530s. And gradually he became elevated to the first Duke of Tuscany and ruled for about 7 years or so before he was assassinated by his cousin Lorenzino, and this led to another cousin, Cosimo de' Medici, becoming at first the second Duke of Tuscany and then the first Grand Duke. And this book is so good. I enjoyed every minute of it. It's a very short biography. Unfortunately, there aren't many sources for Alessandro de' Medici. A lot of his papers, a lot of government records from the period seem to either be missing or to have been destroyed. And a lot of what we do have is probably propaganda to make him look worse than he was. But I enjoyed this book. It was magnificent. It's an amazing book. And there are a few things that I'm kind of really curious about. For one, the relationship between Alessandro and Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, who seems to have, because when the Medici returned in the 1530s, the idea was to originally, the Medici would reassume their place as first amongst equals, but then Alessandro was raised to Duke of Tuscany and was allowed to marry Charles V's daughter, Margaret of Austria, even though he was most certainly displeased about Alessandro's half-sister Catherine marrying the future Henri II of France. And then the years after his death, it was Charles who ordered the assassination of Lorenzino for his assassination of Alessandro. So that's a really interesting story, but I'm not entirely sure what the sources are for that. But anyway, I love this book. And I'm looking forward to getting the biography of his half-sister in the next week or so. So, on to the BookTube prize. So, I read The Black Prince of Florence over the weekend, and so on Friday I started Agent Sonya by MacIntyre, and I managed to finish it up quicker than I expected, which isn't an uncommon event for me when I read on ebooks. I do seem to read them faster than I do print copies. So I also managed to get in um, The Dragons, the Giant, the Women by Wayetu, also for the BookTube prize. And since these are both BookTube prize books, or books for the BookTube prize, I can only say I've read them until the end of March or beginning of April, when the results of the octafinals are announced, and I'm doing Group C in nonfiction. So, going into this weekend and the work week, I'm planning on reading first Fifth Son by Camilla Townsend. This is a history of the Aztecs, and I'm quite looking forward to finally getting around to reading this book. And then during the work week, I will be reading The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. And hopefully I will enjoy it, and I will report back next week on both of them. So, moving on to what I've watched. So, last weekend I finished off The Toys That Made Us, and again, I think a second viewing might have been extraneous. And I don't think I've really talked about what The Toys That Made Us are. So The Toys That Made Us was a documentary series produced by Netflix that looked at popular toys that had a wide impact on popular culture, or was influenced by popular culture. Mostly these toys had their heyday in the 80s, though some had their heydays in like the 70s or into the 90s. And it lasted for 3 seasons of 4 episodes each. So the first season was Star Wars, and then He-Man, G.I. Joe, and Barbie. And one thing about the series is usually 3 of the toys featured will be boys' toys, or toys primarily aimed at boys, and then the 4th one will be one aimed at a primarily girl audience. The second season included Star Trek, Transformers, Legos, and Hello Kitty. And then the third and final season included Power Rangers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the 2 episodes I watched last weekend, My Little Pony and wrestling. And I actually really liked My Little Pony episode. It was quite good. The wrestling one was a dud. And then on Saturday, I binged The Movies That Made Us, which is from the same people who did The Toys That Made Us, same narrator, same format. And this series was for films Dirty Dancing, Home Alone, Ghostbusters, and Die Hard. And they were okay. There were some parts that I really liked. The going to film locations, I thought was really brilliant. I quite liked the Home Alone episode. It was quite good, and the Die Hard, I think, was the best episode of the 4. And then on Sunday, I didn't watch anything besides BookTube because Peg at the History Shelf had like 100 videos of about an hour apiece. So, I mean, they were enjoyable. I loved all of them. Put me on to Princeton's yearly sale, which I'll have to remember for next year, because 75% off. Ooh, that's a good deal. Anyway, so, and I also watched the 5th episode of WandaVision this afternoon and loved it. WandaVision is just magnificent. And this episode, definitely the best so far. So tonight, I'm going to be watching The Year of Living Dangerously on TCM. It features Mel Gibson, Sigourney Weaver, and Linda Hunt. About the years before, or the lead up to, the overthrow of Suharto in Indonesia. And then tomorrow, I think I'm going to watch probably Boys in the Band or I Am Michael on Netflix. I'm not entirely sure, and I'll report back what I watch Saturday next week. And then on Sunday will be the Super Bowl. And I've also started before I go to bed listening to music on my Amazon Unlimited using the shuffle, and so far it's been a really fun experience. Like a lot of the movies, or not movies, songs I've got on there. So anyway, BookTube, that's my plan for next week and what I've read this past week. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and sign off now because there are quite a few Steve Donahue videos I want to watch before The Year of Living Dangerously comes on. So until next week, BookTube, thank you. Have a great evening and weekend, and please stay safe.